your questions, your DMs, email questions from the hockey helmet. Okay, so we're going to get into that right now. From SSRS CPA, do you anticipate the 3-year fix dropping in the next few weeks? According to the bond market, no, I don't see any relief in the 3-year fixed rate. That's a quick and dirty answer, and not one that you probably wanted to hear. From the _optimist, are you seeing a number of distressed home sellers yet? Well, going back to my point about the emails we're seeing, we are seeing some distressed homeowners that are looking at selling. In the last few weeks, we've come across over a half dozen that we sat down and said it may be time to get ahead of this and sell. Okay, try to protect that equity. They're starting to anticipate falling behind, and we're probably going to be missing their September 1st payment. So before that happens, we recommended maybe listing, getting ahead of it, and trying to protect as much equity as possible before banks and the process starts coming on top of you and they start controlling the process and dictating when you're going to move. So I'm a big believer, when you've understood and gone through every option possible and things aren't looking better, cut your losses, regroup, sell, lick your wounds, and start over. The amount of anxiety, stress, and worry that you're going to save yourself and your family is going to save you years off your life. And it's not worth being a slave to a debt that is uncontrollable. So we're seeing more of that. I think you're going to see more and more listings as we head into the second half of this year. And for those folks that are just hanging on, the bull's not going to stop bucking. So you're going to get thrown around, you're going to get hurt. Get off, control the process, and do yourself and your family a favor by getting ahead of it. In times of economic uncertainty, how can homeowners protect themselves from foreclosure risks? Okay, well, dovetailing off of what I just said, getting ahead of it is so key. You know, a number of months ago, back in the early part of this year, there was a client who was under duress and was starting to get close to a renewal at a rate that they couldn't afford. And they're getting really nervous about it. They just had no options, and we basically helped them make a decision to sell. They got ahead of it. There wasn't a lot of listings back in January, February, but they didn't have much to compete with, and they got a little bit more than they were anticipating. And they got ahead of it, protected some equity, and went on to rent a home, and for considerably less than what they would be paying in mortgage interest and fees. So one of the things to do to avoid the foreclosure is to understand exactly where you're at, understand exactly how you're going to make your payments, and if you can't, and you know that ahead of time, get ahead of it and sell. Okay, control the process, find your realtor, get out of Dodge, and you avoid all those flurry of fees from enforcement lawyers. The enforcement process is very, very expensive. The fees get tacked on and just eats away at your equity. So if you could get ahead of it and prepare in advance, do so. You'll be doing yourself a favor. Will worsening rental prospects undermine federal and provincial immigration policies? Well, there's no real provincial immigration policies. It's all federal. And we are seeing rents continuously move upwards. We talked a little bit about it last week on how the rental wage that is needed for a 1-bedroom is up to $34 an hour for 2 people to afford rent on a 1-bedroom. And if you're looking at a 2-bedroom property, the rental wage is just over $40. So that's $40 by each individual, and that's a household of 2 earners. That's about $160,000 in income needed to pay rent for a 2-bedroom in Toronto. So it is becoming a problem. There's not enough units. We have a new housing, infrastructure, and communities minister in Sean Fraser that has his hands full. He's going to have to tackle this problem and try to figure out how he could entice both the province and the municipalities to build high density. Okay? I don't know if he's going to use a carrot or if he's going to use a stick. But the reality is we need more homes. We need more and more rental units to help folks house themselves. You know, just this week I was downtown. I had to take my dad down to St. Mike's for a doctor's appointment, and unbelievable what I saw down at Church and Wellesley. Very concerning. The amount of homeless people living in the park was incredible. You know, my dad and my sister hadn't been down there in ages, and they were shocked. They were shocked at what the city's become. And the reality is that's going to be very tough to deal with as the winter comes and it gets colder. So I don't know how fast we could build more units. I don't know how quickly a solution can be put in place, but it's desperately needed. We are in crisis mode right now, and we really need to get on top of this and solve this as Canadians so we're not embarrassed, okay? Because it is going to be an embarrassing situation. We'll go into a couple more. This is from GTA Real Estate Investor. To be housing minister, why do they need experience as immigration minister as a prerequisite? I think that's just a coincidence. But I will say this, the two ministries are linked together, okay? And having the experience as an immigration minister will give you some perspective on the amount of housing needed and in what part of the regions of Canada. I don't know if it's a prerequisite. I just think it's a coincidence. The last two had experiences in both. The last one did a very poor job. Like, for Christ's sake, it was just a mess. Like, he didn't do anything. Like, 36 homes here, 78 homes in Cambridge. Like, come on. We need millions. CMHC, their latest report indicated we need 3.5 million new homes above what's being built on an annual basis by the year 2030 in order to tackle affordability. I don't know how they're going to do it, and anybody who thinks it's going to happen is on crack, because it's a monumental task to achieve, and I think it's going to take a hell of a lot of work and a whole lot of cooperation from every level of government, developers, CMHC, banks, to make it happen. And one of the things that needs to be eliminated is all the input taxes that are involved in building. Municipalities have really taken a liking to hammering the new home buyer, okay? As we've said many times before, 31% of the cost of a new home is input taxes. And that is just unreasonable. It's not right. Homeowners who own homes should have their property taxes go up, because it's just ridiculous. I was talking to a friend of mine. He's in the commercial space, and he moved from Oakville into Toronto, and he bought a home at the same value that he sold for in Oakville. So he lived in downtown Oakville, moved to Toronto into a larger condo. His property taxes in Toronto were a third of what he was paying in Oakville for the same value home. Think of that for a minute. Toronto's property taxes are a pittance when you compare it to other communities in 905. And local councillors are motivated to keep property taxes lower so they could be voted in again. Incumbents are very difficult to replace in municipal politics. And it's because they cater to their constituents and keep property taxes low and try to hammer everybody else. And folks, that formula can't work moving forward. Things are going to start to break. Olivia Chow can't even get any money from the feds. She's been told there's no money. From Krista Freeland, who's a sitting MP in the city of Toronto, isn't even willing to work with the new mayor of Toronto. So it's going to be an uphill battle, and one that's going to result in property taxes going up. So expect that if you're in the city, your property taxes are most likely going to go up to levels you've never seen before. So be ready. It's inflationary, okay? And will we get services that are expected? Who knows? We'll have to see. Let's go to one more, okay? From SSRS CPA, how is the 5-year bond market? Well, as I said a few moments ago, it just hit 4. And when I got on today, it hit 402. Not moving in the right direction. Last week, it was sitting at 386. It's moving up probably because the Fed hiked rates today. And everybody's expecting rates to probably move up again. Let's take one more because that was a quick one. Let's take the last one here. From Katz, KZEHT067. A lot of rentals are being sold with tenants. Real estate market is not hot. Is this because of interest rates? Yes. So, a lot of rentals that are being sold with tenants, a lot of deals are falling apart because people who are buying them want vacant possession. It's difficult to get vacant possession if a tenant isn't willing to sign an N11 to leave based on a move. So it's becoming very difficult to close these deals. We're seeing a lot of situations where clients are saying, well, if I don't get vacant possession, I really don't want to take on the responsibility of getting rid of a tenant, especially if they're below market. So it's causing a bit of problem, and a lot of it has to do with interest rates, because with interest rates going up, a lot of these investors who opted for variable mortgages for rental properties, which is a big no-no in my book, are upside down on a cash flow basis, so they can only withstand so much. And when you're down approximately $1,200 to $1,500 a month cash flow on these rental units, it's tough to swallow $15,000 to $20,000 a year in cash flow losses. It's just unsustainable long term, especially if you have multiple units and whatnot. So interest rates are having an impact. And it's also causing a delay in disposing of these units, because if there's not a tenant that's cooperating to leave, the new buyer isn't willing to take on that responsibility. So thank you very much for that question. So folks, I want to wrap it up on episode 141 of the Wise Old Owl Show. And just wanted to stress, if you have the ability to help somebody, if you have the ability to reach out to friends, family members, colleagues at work, who may be struggling in silence, please ask if you could help. There are many people that are in these situations and they suffer in silence. And I think it's incumbent on us, if we have the capacity to help in any way, shape, or form, to do so. So please reach out to as many people as you can and make sure they're okay. It's a tough situation these days. Things are going to get worse, and before they get better, that is. And it's really necessary for us to do our job and help. So if you know anybody that needs a hand, if you know anybody that's looking for some help, please reach out. Please give me an email, send me a DM. I'll be happy to do what I can to provide some insights, some tips, some strategies to get you out of your mess, and at least make some recommendations so that you could breathe a lot easier, you could eliminate some stress, eliminate some worry, and try to turn the corner. Okay, so thank you very much. Enjoy the weekends, watch the heat, and we'll see you next week. Take care.